Somewhere in a cool, dark cellar in western France, there is a glass vessel shaped like a giant teardrop, and the spirit inside it was distilled before anyone watching this was born. Nobody is in a hurry to bottle it. It has been sleeping for the better part of 100 years, giving up a little more of itself to the air every single season, and when it finally goes into a decanter, that decanter will cost more than a decent used car. That is the top of the mountain. And almost nobody who picks up a bottle of cognac at the store has any idea it is even up there. Here is the thing about cognac that whiskey drinkers never quite expect. It is not one drink, it is a ladder. At the bottom sits a spirit that lives in cocktails and costs less than a mid-shelf bourbon. At the very top sits liquid that is blended, guarded, and handed down like a family heirloom. Same region, same grape, same little copper pot still, and a gap between the two ends so wide it hardly feels like the same drink in the glass. So this is the climb. 7 levels from the bottle on the bottom shelf to the one kept behind locked glass. And by the time we reach the top, you will know exactly what you are paying for, and more to the point, where the real value is hiding. Because it is not where most people think, and it is not level 7. Stay with me, because the level that people who actually know cognac reach for is one you have probably walked straight past. But first, 1 minute on how the stuff is even made, because it explains the whole ladder. Every drop of cognac begins as thin, sharp, almost undrinkable white wine, pressed from a humble grape called Ugni Blanc. That wine is distilled twice in a small copper pot still, a shape barely changed in 300 years, until it runs off clear and fierce as moonshine. Then it goes to sleep in French oak, and from that moment it does 2 things at once. It pulls colour and flavour out of the wood, and it quietly loses itself to the air, a slice of every barrel evaporating away each year. The French call that vanished spirit the angel's share, and the older the cognac, the more the angels have taken. That is why the very top of this ladder is so rare and so costly. Time is the one ingredient no house can hurry. Let us start at the bottom. Level 1 is VS. 2 letters you have seen 1,000 times and most likely never decoded. They stand for very special, and all that truly promises is this. The youngest spirit in that blend has spent at least 2 years asleep in oak. 2 years. That is the floor, the legal minimum for anything that wants to wear the name cognac at all. This is the workhorse of the whole category. Hennessy's very special on its own, is one of the most poured spirits anywhere on earth. And it was built for exactly one job: mixing. The bright fruit, the little bite of young oak, the touch of heat, all of it cuts through a sidecar or a cognac and ginger without disappearing. People who tell you cognac is stuffy have usually only ever met it at this level, in a tall glass doing a job. There is no shame in it. The sharpest bartenders in the world lean on exactly this tier, because a very special is built to be tasted through citrus and sugar and soda, not around them. Judge the whole category by its bottom shelf though, and you will always underrate it. Just know that this is the ground floor, and you have 6 levels still above your head. And the next one is where it stops being a mixer and starts asking to be sipped. Level 2 is VSOP, Very Superior Old Pale, a name left over from the old British wine trade, when an order supposedly came in asking for something very superior, old and pale. Here, the youngest spirit in the blend has to be at least 4 years old, and those extra couple of years change the character completely. The raw edges round off. The fruit turns from green apple towards something warmer, dried apricot, a little vanilla creeping in from the oak. This is the first level where a good cognac earns a spot next to your whiskey rather than in a cocktail shaker. It is the everyday sipping tier, the bottle you open on a normal evening without a second thought about the price. And it is where the big 4 houses really show their house style for the first time. Which brings up something worth knowing before we climb any higher. 4 houses tower over this whole world. Hennessy, the giant, pouring more cognac than anyone. Remy Martin, which builds its reputation on the 2 best growing zones and almost nothing else. Martell, the oldest of the 4, founded back in 1715, with a lighter, more elegant signature. And Courvoisier, the softer, rounder one of the group. At level 2, you are mostly tasting their blending skill. By the top of the ladder, you will be tasting their patience instead. And level 3 is the one almost everyone skips. Level 3 is Napoleon. It sits in an odd little gap that most drinkers step straight over without noticing, and that is exactly why it can be a quiet bargain. The youngest spirit here has to be at least 6 years old, so it sits above the level we just left but below the grand old designations, and a lot of houses treat it as an afterthought. That means a well-made Napoleon can give you close to the depth of the next level up while still carrying a middle shelf price. The name has nothing to do with the emperor drinking it, by the way. It is simply a quality step that's stuck. Taste a serious one, and you get honeyed oak, candied orange, the first hint of that deep, old character that the top levels are famous for. And speaking of that character, the next level is where cognac finally turns serious, and where the rules changed in a way most people never heard about. Level 4 is XO Extra Old. For decades, this was the connoisseur badge, the bottle you brought out for something that mattered. And in 2018, the people who govern cognac quietly moved the goalposts. Until then, the youngest spirit in an extra old only had to be 6 years old. Since that change, it has to be at least 10. Overnight, this became a genuinely older, richer, more expensive category, and every house had to reformulate around it. This is where you meet a word the whole category worships: rancio. It is the flavor that only decades in oak can build, a savory, nutty note somewhere between toasted walnut, old leather, dried mushroom, and fruitcake. It sounds strange written down, and it is glorious in the glass. At level 4, you start tasting time itself. A good extra old is layered, long, and warming in a way no young spirit can fake. And it is the honest ceiling for most people. Beyond here, you are paying steeply for smaller and smaller steps. Before we climb the last 3 levels, do something for me. Drop a comment and tell me honestly which of these levels you actually drink at. No wrong answers and no judgment, I promise. I go through every comment on these videos, and the split on this question always surprises me, because the people quietly sitting at level 6 are never the ones you would guess. Alright, the thin air near the top. Level 5 is XXO and Hors, 2 names for the rarefied space just below the summit. The first stands for Extra Extra Old, made an official category in that same 2018 shakeup, and it demands a youngest spirit of at least 14 years. Hors translates roughly as beyond age, a phrase houses use for blends so old that a simple number would undersell them. At this level, the fruit has almost fully retreated, and the rancio takes over. You get tobacco, dark honey, old wood, dried fig, a whisper of the cellar itself. These are contemplative bottles, poured in small measures, sipped slowly, often costing a few $100s and up. And here is the honest truth about level 5. The jump in quality from level 4 is real but small, while the jump in price is large. You are now paying for rarity as much as for flavor, which is the perfect moment to reveal the level that people who truly know this drink quietly consider the smartest buy on the entire mountain. Level 6 is the grower cognac. The single estate, single growing zone, sometimes single cask, made by the family that owns the vines rather than by one of the giants. And this is the secret door. To understand why, you need the one idea the big houses do not put on the front label: the growing zones. Cognac is carved into ranked areas of soil, and 2 of them stand above the rest: Grand Champagne and Petit Champagne, chalky ground that produces the finest, longest-lived, most elegant spirit of all. Below them sits Borderies, the smallest of the great cru, prized for a soft violet and nutty character, and then the wider workmanlike zones of Fin Bois, and beyond that, fill out the everyday blends. When you see the words Fine Champagne on a label, that is a blend of the top 2 zones, at least half of it Grand Champagne, and it is the one growing term the big houses will actually put on the front of the bottle. Now you know what it has been quietly telling you all along. When a small grower bottles a pure Grand Champagne cognac from their own land, unblended and untouched, you are tasting the rawest expression of the very best terroir in the region. And because these growers have no marketing empire to fund, no crystal decanter to pay for, the value can be extraordinary. A grower Grande Champagne can deliver the depth of a big house bottle costing 3 times as much. This is the level the enthusiasts trade names about in hushed voices. Frappin, which grows and distills on its own estate. Paul Giraud, the independent bottlers who buy old barrels from retiring farmers and release them as they are. It is not about the age statement here. It is about a place and a family and a spirit that tastes of both. This, not the summit, is where the money is smartest. But you did not come here to stop one level short, so let us climb the last step. Level 7 is Paradis, the top. The name comes from the Paradise Cellar, the deepest room in a great cognac house, where the oldest and most precious spirits are moved out of oak and into those giant glass teardrops to stop them aging any further so they can wait, sometimes for generations, for the master blender who will finally use a few drops of them. The walls of these cellars are stained black by a harmless fungus that feeds on the evaporating spirit, a living sign of how long the room has been breathing. The oldest treasures are kept in wicker-wrapped glass jars the French call Dame Jeanne, lifted out of oak so they stop aging and simply hold, waiting. This is the world of Louis XIII by Remy Martin, a blend built from as many as 1,200 separate old spirits, some of them aged between 40 and 100 years, presented in a decanter of Baccarat crystal and priced somewhere around $4,000 a bottle. It is the world of ancestral house blends poured a handful of times in a lifetime, at weddings, at funerals, at the closing of a deal that changes a family. The spirit inside was laid down by a blender who knew he would never taste the finished result, trusting the one who came after him, who trusts the one who comes next. Is it worth the money? Honestly, as a flavor for the price, no. Nothing tastes $4,000 better than a great level 6 bottle. What you are buying at the summit is not really flavor. It is time made liquid and the strange, beautiful patience of people who plant something they will never harvest. That is the top of the mountain, and now you know every step of the way up it. So there it is, 7 levels from the cocktail pour to the crystal decanter. If you take one thing away, let it be this. The smart climber stops at level 6, buys a single estate Grand Champagne from a family that grows its own and drinks better than the man who spent 5 times more at the top. Now, I want to hear from you. Which house do you actually trust, and did I get the levels right? Tell me the grower or the bottle I should have named and did not, because there is always one, and someone in the comments is about to teach the rest of us something. I go through every single one. I'll see you in the next one.